The final nightmarish chapter of Madalyn's atheist epic began on the morning of August 28, 1995. A letter posted on the gate of the Austin headquarters announced, "The Murray O'Hair family has been called out of town on an emergency basis. We do not know how long we will be gone." At their house, the O'Hairs left behind the remains of a meal, their passports, and their beloved dogs.
Nobody was answering the phone at the center in Texas. I thought, well, nobody's answering the phone, call back. You know, it didn't mean anything. Call back hours later. No, there wasn't any answer. Okay, well, send a fax. Please call. Nobody can get in touch with you. Call their cell phone. Did all those things, then we realized that no, they weren't answering. Finally, I called John's cell phone, and Madalyn answered. And I thought, oh, I said, wow, finally. She said, everything's okay. I think that was it.
But in the days that followed, there was no sign of the three O'Hairs. Days became weeks, and still no news. But Ellen Johnson had some troubling phone calls.
I just remember one particular phone call, I think Robin answered the phone. And Robin was just not herself. I mean, Robin was really, really upset. And I said, what's wrong? Is everything okay? And she said, well, could I tell you if it wasn't?
After a month, the phone calls stopped.
For the longest time, I believed that they had taken the money and run. And I can't sugarcoat that. That's what I believed.
Outside the inner circles of the American atheists, most people forgot about the O'Hairs, figuring they'd fled the country. John McCormick is a reporter with the San Antonio Express News. He could have had no idea that the O'Hairs' disappearance was about to become the biggest story of his life.
At the time the one-year anniversary of her disappearance approached, I was unaware that she was even missing. It began as a pretty ordinary assignment, a one-story assignment, and of course it grew from there.
It was 3 months after McCormick's routine piece that the story moved on. The American Atheists organization filed annual tax returns showing that more than $600,000 was missing. McCormick teamed up with a private detective to follow the money and, they thought, the runaway O'Hairs.
That was our theory, that they had taken the money and run, and we followed leads. You know, New Zealand was an obvious lead because they had contemplated retiring there. Australia, Hawaii, we had people saying they'd been seen in India, Germany, Canada.
In fact, the breakthrough came much closer to home. It was in San Antonio, Texas, just an hour up the road from the atheist headquarters in Austin. The investigation of the O'Hairs' disappearance was soon focused amid the dreary expressways and motels and storage facilities which circle the city. Key were the cell phone records of John Garth Murray in the weeks following the disappearance.
They laid out a map of the places they had called, the services they'd used. There were calls to airlines, there were calls to financial institutions, there were calls to jewelry shops. So there were also calls to local restaurants and things like that. So we could pretty much put them in the northwest quadrant of San Antonio. You know, that led us to the next big breakthrough, which was the discovery that they'd bought $500,000 worth of gold coins. Money always adds a lot to the plot line, so now you had 3 people gone and $600,000, so the story became quite a bit more interesting.
In September 1995, Corey Tickner took a surprising phone call. It was 2 weeks after the O'Hairs' disappearance.
A gentleman by the name of Mr. Murray called me and was interested in purchasing a large amount of gold coins. He indicated that he wanted to buy approximately $600,000 worth of gold coins, which was a little bit out of the ordinary.
Tickner ordered the 1,500 gold coins, and on September 29, 1995, 4 weeks after the disappearance, he contacted John Garth Murray to tell him that most of the coins had arrived.
He wasn't familiar with how to count coins. He was trying to count each one individually, and look at them, and it was kind of a time-consuming affair because he was looking at each coin, so it took a couple hours to do. He was kind of unkempt. He kind of had a bit of an odor to him, kind of like he hadn't showered recently, and he was kind of disheveled, I guess, kind of uncombed. Then we put the gold coins in a briefcase, and we escorted him out to his car, put him in the trunk of his car, and he drove off.
My name is Ed Martin. I was with the Criminal Investigation Division of the Internal Revenue Service. We're the ones that carry the badge and the gun. Okay, we make arrests and such. I began by trying to follow the money.
Ed Martin, like John McCormack, found that the investigation of the O'Hair's disappearance became an obsession. It consumed him for 4 years. He told me how Madalyn's unpopularity in Austin made local lawmen and Texas Governor George Bush reluctant to pursue the case of the missing atheists.
She was not well liked here because of the things that she brought up, you know, protesting this, and she didn't like the, I think, the cross in the city of Austin seal, and I think she protested the nativity scene at the Capitol, and I mean all of these things, and so she didn't make herself real friendly.
By 1998, 3 years after the disappearance, the mystery was beginning to unravel. The investigations of a reporter, a private detective, the FBI, and Ed Martin were revealing a grisly story. The main suspect was Madalyn's former office manager, David Waters. Madalyn had hired Waters to help as a typesetter on the Atheist magazine and then promoted him to office manager.
David Waters was a very good typesetter. He was extremely efficient. I do have to say that there was something about him that didn't seem right to me.
Before they disappeared, the O'Hairs were already alarmed about Waters. He had been found guilty of stealing $54,000 from the Atheists' headquarters, but was freed on 10 years probation. More disturbing was what Madalyn heard about the past history of her former office manager.
A member dug up some archival newspaper accounts of Waters' arrest at the age of 17 for murder. He and some others had beaten another guy to death with a fence post, ostensibly because they wanted to use his car and he didn't want them to. And Madalyn was scared by that.
This is David Waters firing his 9mm Browning automatic in a range here in Austin. David is a convicted felon. He's not supposed to be in possession of ammunition, much less a handgun or any gun. This is David showing his prowess with his weapon.
Madalyn published a blistering attack about Waters, which detailed a depraved attack he'd made on his mother. Waters was enraged.
She went over the line with him when she hung his dirty laundry in the public about his criminal past and his horrific behavior toward his mother, and it ended up one of these personalities was going to die, and it was Madalyn Murray O'Hair.
Waters was an obvious suspect, but with no trace of the O'Hairs or their money, he lived on in Austin, denying everything.
He was a very bold individual. He was intelligent, and he wasn't in the least bit intimidated by having to talk to a reporter who obviously believed he was, a murderer.